Okay, we have our coffee coming here.
Should we pause? Or? Yeah, that's all.
That's okay.
I think so.
You even get a date with your Dutch.
Yeah, absolutely. Merci, shukran.
Malik has a charismatic personality, a friendly attitude, and a great command of the English language. It's qualities like these that have given him opportunities to travel, see the world, and study abroad. I met up with Malik at a weekly English Hour event and was drawn in by his story, so I invited him for coffee where we had a conversation about how he decided to come back to Tunisia and implement his ideas here. Multiply Tunisia's goal is to capture the entrepreneurial spirit of Tunisia by highlighting the influencers in its startup, social innovation, and artistic communities. We're also interested in tracking the growing impact of English on these sectors and the effects that this will have on Tunisian culture.
So we're here on another busy morning, Ben Rahim Coffee, and waiting for our coffee to come. I'm here with a guy I've known for a little while now, Malik. Could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Malik? Who is Malik?
Well, it's nice to be with you. Thanks for having me, Nick. So my name is Malik, 28. Born and raised in the beautiful region of Qasrien, Midwest Tunisia. Left the country at the age of 16, went on an exchange to the United States, and that's where my journey abroad started. After my exchange, I went to France. That's where I graduated high school, and eventually went to college where I studied business and got a degree in business administration from a business school in Paris called ESSEC. And now I'm back in Tunisia, starting a startup. And yeah.
So you started, your journey sounds like you started in the States first on an internship, and then it was France. What were the things that allowed you to get into the US? Like, for instance, had you learned or studied English before going to the US at all?
Yeah, I think it was a passion since I was a kid, watching American movies, getting exposed to the whole American culture and the American dream and whatnot. And that pushed me to dig further into the language and try to learn it more. So develop a passion for it. And then I participated in a program run by the U.S. Department of State in collaboration with the AMIDIS here in Tunis, called the Youth Exchange and Study Program. And that's what I got sponsored and went to the U.S. for an exchange year as a senior in a U.S. high school. And then obviously the program lasts only for 1 year. So when that year was finished, I had to go back. But instead of going back to Tunisia like my colleagues at the time, I went directly to France since I have family there. And that's where I finished high school and then started college. Yeah.
So where in the States did you land? Where did you go to school? Where were you?
Pennsylvania. Yeah, it was a very interesting state. Didn't know much about it at the time. And
it's a little different than Qasrien.
It's definitely different. Qasrien is like a small city. And where I lived in Pennsylvania, in Littlestown, is like a really small village. I remember I was disappointed at the time since I didn't have much for the countryside, but eventually I ended up loving it. That's where I really got exposed to some really nice people and gotten to know the U.S. culture at depth, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, Littlestown, Pennsylvania, very beautiful place.
Very good.
With a very nice host family.
So you studied, you were there for high school for an exchange program, went to France, learned your business. You've spoken to me several times. You said that you have traveled around the world. What are some places that you've been around the world as well?
Yeah, I've been to Singapore. I've been to many European countries like France, Italy, Germany. Been to the United States. Had an exchange with my college. I had an exchange in Canada. So I went in Canada, in Ontario, and small city of Kingston. It was very beautiful as well.
Well, from what you've said, it feels like you have opportunities. It feels like both the opportunity you had in the States, but also you said you have family in France and things like that.
Absolutely.
With all of that, you made the decision to come back to Tunisia. You have a startup company, you said. What were the factors that led you to come back to Tunisia?
Actually, a set of factors. I'd say there is personal and professional. So when it comes to the personal, obviously I'm Tunisian, so I was born and raised here. This is my home country. I lived in many countries around the world, and I've never really felt home as much as I felt home in Tunisia. I felt home in France as well. I try to adapt to whatever I go, but in Tunisia, there's this special a feeling of belonging that I feel, whether it be with the culture, my identity, or whatnot. And also that there's my parents who are alive, and now since all of us went abroad, they're sons and daughters. So to kind of have some time to live with my parents as they're getting older is very important to me. With regards to the professional side of it, I believe that there's a real opportunity here in Tunisia, especially in the textile industry, which I'm operating in. My family and my father has established a company, a sewing company in 2007, making garments and exporting it mainly to Europe. As I was studying in France, I tried to diversify his client portfolio by trying to negotiate contracts with new clients and then taking those orders and making them and exporting back to Europe. So I tried to make use of my existence there in order to open new markets for our family business. That's how my passion and love for textiles started. So the fact that I got exposed to many clients and got exposed in depth to the industry. What I've done by the time is that I was getting more and more aware of some things that were missing in this industry in Tunisia, especially when it comes to the sourcing of fabrics, which is definitely a necessary part of the value chain. And one of the main gaps in the industry is that the fabric sector was not very well developed. It was not mainly very digitized, and there was a lot of information asymmetry. So for example, I would have a specific demand from a client in Europe who wants to make a certain type of garments with a specific backpack, and then I would be having a hard time finding those that type of fabric with those specificities for my clients. And that's where the idea of Tissu.en was born. So I was like, all right, there seems to be a gap. There seems to be a real need for this and a problem that hasn't been solved yet. So maybe I should be the first one stepping in and bridging this gap. That's where I've been working on this for 2 years almost. We built a platform, a web with web developers in the States and in France as well. Okay. So that brings the English part of it. And now it's been launched recently. We've been trying to build the ecosystem. The main rationale is to link consumers, whether they be sewing companies, dressmakers, designers, or even households, to link them with the fabric suppliers here in Tunisia. So it's to streamline the fabric industry in order to have a clear offer and with clear prices and diverse products.
So is this specifically, is this like a subsidiary of your mom and dad's company, or is this you specifically?
This is an independent.
This is you. Huh?
This is an independent legal entity that was set up here in Tunis, and fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, time will reveal, I'm the only shareholder, so this is my company and my own. So yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit, you have building your website, you have Americans involved, you have French involved, you have clients from all over. What role does English play in this aspect of the business specifically?
So English has always been an interesting part in running business for me. First of all, when it comes to communication, whether I'm communicating with developers, with clients, with stakeholders, usually English has been the lingua franca for this. Yeah, so it's been very important for communication with the different stakeholders, as I said. And then since I was in business school, I had an English track, so I learned business in the English language. I've been a fan of business reviews like the Harvard Business Review, and that's mainly available in the English language. They have translation in the editions in the French language, but I always couldn't support. I'm a guy that likes to read stuff in its originals as much as possible when I have the capacity for that. So yeah, communication with the different stakeholders, the business and managerial culture, it's been primarily in English.
Feels like you've been in and out of Tunisia. You've been in Tunisia for a little while. Have you noticed an increase in the use of English here in Tunisia over the past few years?
Oh, absolutely. As you're well aware, Tunisia is a former French colony. French had a great influence on Tunisia since millennia, and even post-independence, that's been the main or second language. And as Tunisia was looking to diversify its partnerships with many countries and became a special ally of the United States, many programs like the program that I was part of, which is the Youth Exchange and Study Program, had a specific purposes, and one of those purposes obviously is to encourage the use of the English language. So I believe that, along with many other factors, have pushed English to have a more interesting position, especially with Tunisian youth, and with the U.S. and American culture having more influence in the region, American movies, Netflix, and this and that. So I see many youth in my country now speak more English even than French. When I consider myself to be somewhat old school since I left Tunisia, at a young age, and now I'm coming back and I'm rediscovering a new youth. And at the time that I was a teenager here, I remember there was more of a thing for French than there was for English. And now that I'm coming back and I'm seeing this new youth speaking more English, so there is like a dynamic shift where people are feeling more comfortable in their skin speaking English than they are speaking French. If this gets to any Tunisian that's living abroad and maybe thinking about coming back to Tunisia, obviously I wouldn't advise them to leave all what they have and then come here definitively. I haven't done that choice myself. I still have my residency in France. I go back and forth because I have things to do as well, and I also need things for my business. So but I would definitely encourage them to consider having something in Tunisia. Either would be an investment or something of that kind. And the main reasons would be, I believe, is the changing dynamics here in Tunisia and in the West as well. Personally, I've been able to witness some changing social and political dynamics in the West, whereby the culture, especially when it comes to marginalized groups, have become maybe less open and could feel a little bit more of a pressure. So being in my home country gives that feeling of belonging that maybe I couldn't necessarily fully find in the West. When it comes to business and opportunity, I think Tunisia has been making some interesting changes recently. I see that there is a current willingness to open the market more for youth. I find that to be reassuring, and hopefully that will bear its fruits in the near future. So I believe that there will be more opportunities for youth like myself because one of the basic principles of economics is to have a fair and free market. Not necessarily a free market in the neoliberal sense, but at least a market that can function where competition can be ensured. And I believe that pace is starting, and I hope that more and more Tunisians will benefit from it.
So you feel, at least for the future, you have hope?
Even as the macroeconomic indicators seem not to propose that, but I believe that there is a recent trend, a recent willingness to make changes here in the country, and to make the market more open. And I'm very optimistic to that.
Well, Malik, thank you for taking the time, sharing a cup of coffee with me, and look forward to hearing more about you and your business in the future.
Well, it's my pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Multiply Tunisia is brought to you by 11 Talents. At 11 Talents, we consult, design, and multiply. Find out more by following us on our Facebook page, our Instagram feed, or by visiting our website at 11talents.com. At 11 Talents, we start with you.